Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're from. My name is Ty. This will be my last video with Teach Now. I couldn't do a video teaching of myself, so I'm going to talk about the process in which I would teach now. So I guess I'll reference back to one of the videos that I did in Standard 2. And I did it on comparatives and superlatives. And the way I did it, I didn't really think about opening up like a brainstorming idea before I even introduced the topic. And so this is like my first point about if I retaught that lesson, I would probably open up with just playing a video right away, or showing pictures with comparatives, and then slowly work my way to superlatives. This probably would take me about a week to do, but I would probably break up into sections first. So with comparatives, I mentioned before, I would open up with a video and pictures, and then I would introduce the comparatives using PowerPoint. PowerPoint has been my most favorite thing to go to visual-wise, and because I didn't have any other resources to use, so PowerPoint is still my thing to go to. But I can't just use PowerPoint. I also thought of thinking of other ways that I can introduce comparatives. The way that I'm thinking now is that when I'm introducing a topic, I try to think about are there other ways that I can make sense of the opening topic if I can use objects and pictures or videos or something from a story, anything that I can find easily and show that will cater to different styles of learning. But the simplest and easiest thing for me is just videos and pictures and objects. So in this case, I would probably use pictures, objects, and videos. I'd probably have students, I'd probably write about what a comparative is, like a definition of it on the board, or probably just on my PowerPoint to save time. I find that writing things on PowerPoint, it just saves me a lot more time than writing on a chalkboard. I can get to my point done faster and quicker. But yeah, so I would use PowerPoint. I would introduce what is comparatives. These are two objects. And then I would say this object is bigger than this object. Or vice versa, this object is smaller than this object. And I would probably introduce a few other verbs that are commonly used, like taller, shorter, and we can discuss about talking about people in our class, like the people in our classroom, which I did in my Standard 2 video, and probably open for discussion about like things in our classroom. What is bigger in our classroom? The people in our groups, who is bigger, who is taller, who is smarter. I probably would get them into like a discussion and write down notes, like in pair, mostly I think in pair work or group work at least. But for my large class, I'd probably use it in pair work, and then I would give them time to write down like 5 minutes. Like, okay, well, two objects. I would probably give them a paper, and say bigger, smaller, larger. So something like, a simple thing in Pairworks, and they would have like columns like, probably arrows. I probably would draw an arrow. I would say that, this object is bigger than this object, but this object is smaller than this object. In a way, just to get them like to have an idea of what it means by comparatives. But for me, for pair work, if I was starting a new class, I probably have to start with pair work first before I work my way into group work. I know that it took me quite a while just to establish what it meant to work in a group. And groups of four it's very difficult when I don't assign them roles. And I find that if I give them a role to do and a description of it, I think they're more likely to work together. And then eventually, it builds a habit that they'll get into it and they'll know what to do. And when I say group work or I say pair work, they'll know what to do right away. So it's all about routine. Right, so I talked about comparing objects and doing pair work, writing about comparing things in the classroom, at home. So moving on, so how would I establish them to remember this? Well, it would be either some of the activities that I've been using for a while now. Probably make a flip book, where they make a book and they write a description. What is comparatives? And they make a little small book and they flip it. Oh, comparatives are comparing two things. Ends in ER, and then the rules to it. Or my one storybook. These are ways that they can take notes, but in a fun and exciting thing to do. And of course, I would probably review Pinterest too for any other extra activities that could help them. But I'm always thinking, what can I do to add art to my lesson? Or something that they can cut and draw and write. Things that not just write on a piece of paper, at least something that looks, visually engaging, I would say. Like it's enticing to their eyes. It's like they would love to look at it and remember, this is what comparatives is. This object is bigger than this. Oh, the pen is bigger than the bottle, in a way. So moving on, I would move on next. I would collect data. I would collect data probably by the end of class. I'd probably do a formative assessment first, and as I progress through my lesson, I'd probably use ZipGrade. Flickr would be more of my formative assessment, where I'm going to check to see like what percentage of students understood what the topic is about, and then isolate the students that don't understand, and I probably think of some other activities just to help them out. I also forgot to mention that I would I would give them probably like a worksheet. Definitely like a worksheet to do. Like something simple, and just so that they can practice what is comparatives. They have their student books, but the way that it's designed, it's not it's not like, okay, I have a sheet of, I have like a list of sentences, okay, and then I'm going to fill in the comparatives. No, it's nothing like that. In their student books, in their workbooks, the way that they explain comparatives and superlatives, and it's like I guess you would say um, mm, like a half-built house. It's only like 50% covered, and as long as the house is standing, then students will understand something. So I guess that would be the best way to describe it. It's just it has half of the information and not enough time to practice. The information is just vague. It has one or two sentences. This is the worst book in the world. But at least there's a rubric about, okay, this week they're going to cover this topic, and next week they'll cover this topic. And at least I know that I can just say, okay, I know this week we're going to do about this topic. That's fine. We don't have to use the book. It's useless. They're waste of money. But at least there's something to reference on instead of relying on a book with not a whole lot of resources to use. Alright, so I talked about Plickr. I would collect data and redesign my lesson to help them. I provide worksheets for extra practice, maybe for homework as well. And then by the end of the week, we'll probably get done with comparatives and superlatives, and I'll probably use ZipGrade and just to see how the overall process is. Speaking wise, I've gotten a lot better now with speaking, and with my class, they all have group roles now. And the way that I would do it, I would have to model by myself first, and then with some strong English students. And I would show them, okay, hey, in our classroom, before I even start that, I would have to say, okay, so what we're going to talk about next is in our groups, you're going to talk with your partner, and you're going to look around and say that, the door is bigger than the blah blah blah. I would probably give them like a list of verbs. I would make sure that I would teach it, and then just have them in groups and look at things around the classroom and say, okay, this object is bigger than this object. So I would say I'll give them the words, and there'd be different verbs about taller, shorter, longer, things like that. Same thing with superlatives, and I would try to get them into groups of 4, and they'll say, oh, okay, in their groups, it's like, oh, we see that the chair is bigger than the book. We see that the door is longer than the... I would probably set a timer. That's the other thing I was going to mention, that each of my activities now, I have to set a timer about how long I'm going to do these things. And it has made quite the difference now that I have a timer. I can't... Well, in one of my books at my language center, there's a digital timer, but in this case, I'm going to buy a big clock timer, so that students will have an idea, like, they have this long to do an assignment and within this amount of time. And when they see the timer, they'll realize, oh, okay, I have to get my work done in this certain amount of time. and I have to get it done quickly. I found it to be very efficient, especially now at my language center. They see the clock. They know that, okay, teacher they give us 5 minutes. We have to make sure we do it, and they know that I'm walking around, and they they stop doing the oh, teacher, I'm finished, but now I say that, well, you don't stop until the timer stops. Nobody's finished unless the timer's finished. And so that kind of pushes them to speak more, instead of, oh, okay, we'll get this done quick and then we're going to sit around and talk. But with the timer now, it's just a great aid, and they know that we have to do this in this certain amount of time. What else was I going to mention? I've been taking notes, and I go around. I make sure that each student is on target. I guess this would be another way I would collect data. I've been taking notes a lot now. Which students are struggling in what topic. It's just to help me reference back, like, okay, well, I look at my data, and then I look at my notes, and I think, okay, well, there's something wrong with this picture. He's doing, like, this student is doing good, like, speaking-wise, but on paper, he's not doing that well. So I have to do something that will help him visualize, like, oh, okay, we need to reach this goal. And I guess my final thought would be that projects, something that relates to presentation. I like doing anything with art, and I try to incorporate as much as I can, even though some lessons can be quite a time waster. But I realize that I have to prepare these things ahead of time to reduce the time that they do any cutting or cutting, gluing, anything that involves cutting wastes a lot of time for me. And as long as I plan things out properly and prepare it ahead of time, I give them assigned roles, and then probably also evaluate each other to make sure that, okay, this student participated, these students participated, so I would give them all an equal opportunity chance to rate each other to make sure that, okay, well, this student didn't do the work, but the other one student probably would say, oh, this student didn't do the work, but the other two students probably would say, oh, he did do the work. But yeah, this is a way for them to evaluate each other to make sure that, okay, well, your performance is based on your group members' evaluation of you, and if you don't put in work, then you don't get the grade you deserve. I think that would be all it. That would be my goal. Open up with something to get into the topic, and then finish the topic either in a presentation or some kind of project. I guess my goal is that they are speaking, they are understanding, and they're learning, but in different ways. Visually, kinesthetically, audio, anything that I can find that's fun and enjoyable, can be related to art. I know that my students will have a great time learning something. interesting and fun. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. Alright, that's my thoughts on what I would do to teach a lesson.